Hello, friend. Season
4.
The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from a high desert encampment on the frontier of our agrarian hoplite republic. This is a variety program for happy warriors who are getting some seriously bad vibes from the deranged post-Christian technocracy. Grab a tankard of yak's milk and join us by the campfire as Sumo and Cavi return to shake your surveillance, expel your parasites, and generally have a good time. Are you ready? Stand by.
Mystical American Patriot Society, now available in 3 dimensions.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Cavi. Hello, world. Hello, everyone preparing for the mother of all snowstorms that has ever existed. How are you, Cavi?
Cold.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, we're in the thing where, used to people just would have weather and they would go about their lives. But since I don't know when, the past couple of decades, people have had prediction models and of stuff. And what happens is people run the worst possible 1 in 1,000 prediction model, and they say everyone's going to die, and then everyone freaks out, and they cancel school and work and stuff. They canceled school where my sister is, and where she lives, it is currently 65 degrees.
That sounds hot.
It definitely sounds not freezing, but because it might overnight drop to below freezing, in theory, I guess. And then in any amount of ice, we all cars stop working instantaneously in any amount of ice. Everyone knows that. So everyone just shut down. I remember we used to have stuff and you would just go to school and there would be like a hurricane threatening to kill you and it would just we're still at school. I don't know.
I never had school closed for cold. We would go in -40 and maybe they would take pity on you and let you wait inside until a bell rang.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Canadians are more hardy people than Americans in general, not in the ability to tolerate heat, but in the ability to tolerate cold by miles. But I did have a Canadian friend who I met one time in Phoenix, Arizona, and I thought he would literally die. Like he was like beginning to melt on the side of the road. It was 112 that day Fahrenheit, to be fair, which is quite warm. Have you ever been to Phoenix, Arizona, Cavi?
Arizona, no.
It's a nice place if you enjoy the surface of Mars and the sun. I don't know. It's very popular. A lot of people like to go there. I don't understand why. Nothing can live there It's everything is completely artificial. All the water has to be pumped in from miles away.
Don't a bunch of old people retire there?
Yeah, and I don't understand why. I mean, I get not liking the cold, but come on, There was a lady when I was there. It was on the news, the local news. She fell over, this old lady, and on the sidewalk, and she got like 3rd-degree burns on her skin that touched the sidewalk because it was so hot.
Wow.
It's silly. It's silly hot. Like I've had pairs of shoes melt. It's terrible. So Canadians are not fit for that. But in cold, they're miles ahead. Their cold technology and cold ability to withstand cold is miles ahead. Out west, everyone's got a different thing. I guess out west, everyone will sort of come to a screeching halt if it rains. Like if it rains in Los Angeles, everyone forgets how to drive. Whereas in the East Coast, where it rains all the time, it's fine.
That happens here too.
Yeah. People, it takes very little to get used to something, apparently. I've never had trouble in any of the biomes of this great country or this great continent, really. And driving a car in any of them has never been a problem for me. But most people in California will become unable to operate a vehicle if it is raining more than 1 inch of rain. Just like most people in the South will become completely, inoperable if there's a half inch of snow. I don't know. It seems like it shouldn't be that way and people should be better, but they're not. They're not. Where I grew up, Cabby, anytime it started to get cold, what people would do is they would run out and buy milk and bread. Did you ever run out and buy milk and bread to prepare for an emergency?
No.
So what you would do is you would go out and you would buy all the loaves of bread would be gone. If the weatherman got on TV and he said, it's going to be below freezing, and you went to the grocery store, every loaf of bread and every jug of milk would be gone. In case we all got snowed in, I guess we would live off milk sandwiches. At least I don't know why it was always those two things. But it still happened. I mean, it still happens. Weird. It still happens. People go fill up their gas. Americans, what it is, Americans are at their heart an apocalyptic people. They're always proclaiming the end of the world, whether it be Jesus is coming back or a meteor is going to hit us or global warming. They're always predicting the end of the world, and they're always prepping for it all the time, and they want it to happen. We have a whole religion around prepping for the apocalypse, which is Mormonism. A lot of people don't know that, but part of Mormonism is actually prepping, and you are supposed to, every good Mormon family is supposed to have a room or closet fairly large in their house dedicated to having survival stuffs and various weapons for the end of the. And their vision of Jesus returning is a little different and a lot more violent than most people's. So they're always ready for that. I used to have a Mormon friend growing up. He was one of 11 children. He was the only boy. I guess they wanted a son that badly, and they had girl after girl after girl after girl after girl. They had 10 girls in a row, and then they had a boy, and they stopped. His name was Rick, and his father was an insane man, very nice, but he had turned the entire downstairs of their house into a full-scale gym with every piece of equipment imaginable. It was quite large, and he was down there every day working out and taking steroids, I think, because, in the Mormon view of the world, you have to be sort of physically perfect to prove your election. A lot of some Protestant sects were in the you have to prove yourself by financial success, and that's sort of true in Mormonism, but also you have to be physically perfect. So there's a lot of but they do have a lot of really good prepping tips. If you ever need to know how to prep and keep canned goods good for decades, just go to your local Mormons and they can tell you all about it. Okay, Cabby, today, as I think I'm already sharing the screen, today may be my most schizophrenic thing I've ever talked about.
It's a high bar.
It's a high bar, and I labeled it a mood board because it's sort of hard to talk about, and I'm not sure how it's going to go because it's a topic just on the edge of what would you say? the ability to speak about. It's just, if we go any far beyond this, it becomes ineffable. And it becomes, you can only speak of it through images and gestures. And so what I've got here for you is a bunch of images splattered together, and I think I can tell you something about it that will be very disturbing and also liberating if you see it. I think this one's going to be split into two. I know Cabby doesn't like that, but there's a very good reason. If I go too far here and someone isn't ready for it, they're going to be very upset about it. So I think we need a cutoff somewhere in the middle, but we'll see. Okay. This is a blasphemous mood. It's a blasphemous mood board because it also talks about things in a way that makes everyone of every religion ever uncomfortable. And we're going into Luciferian Heart of All Darkness, and it's man, it gets rough. It gets rough. So let's just begin. There's no other way than just to begin. But I do think this is well, this explains so much. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Are you familiar with Westworld, Cabby, the show, the TV show?
Yes, I saw the first 2 seasons before I kind of tapped out.
Yeah, the first season was good. The second season was okay, and the rest of them were kind of like, what happened, as it does with so many things, is you have a story you want to tell, and you do it all in the first season because you don't know if you'll get renewed for a second season, and they do renew you for a second season, and then you're like, well, now I don't know what to do, and then you just make up stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what you started with, and it drags on forever. This is the thing that happens to so many TV shows. The creators of the show, they had a whole story and they already had it in mind, and they did the whole thing pretty much in the first season. And then they were like, well, I guess we'll do something else now. And they had to sort of make it up quickly, and it wasn't as good. But can you tell the listeners about the basic premise and things of Westworld for a second, Cabby?
Yeah, I did hear in later seasons, though, there's apparently a bunch of truth drops about sentient world simulation and AIs controlling everything. But the first season, at least, there's this theme park kind of deal set up like an Old West sort of town world area. And people go in and they have adventures. And they go in and they pretend that they're in the Old West. And you can do everything from like just having wacky Old West adventures with your kids to whatever your darkest fantasies are. And then yeah, it kind of follows. I think there's that creepy looking dude in the corner there is kind of like the guy who invented the like androids, right? And,
right.
There's how far do you want me to go?
That's okay. Yeah, that's a good summary. So basically imagine Jurassic Park with robots, kind of. So this guy in the bottom corner, he's named Ford. This guy right here, Anthony Hopkins' character. And he's created everyone in this middle picture here. I think I think that's true. Is actually an android. They are this thing over to the right, covered in skin. And what you do is you go in, you pay a lot of money. It's extremely expensive, only for the extremely wealthy. And you go into his park, which he set up in the out west, and everything there. He's got Old West style buildings. He's got horses. They've got and you go back in time essentially with all these androids playing various roles of people in the town. And when you go in, you get you make your own character. It's like going into a video game, and you can choose a white hat or a black hat. And if you choose a white hat, you're going to be a good guy. If you choose a black hat, you're going to be a bad guy. And people go through and they do this many times over because they resets, everything happens. And then the next season you reset and you can go in. And there's a couple people that have been going there for like decades and just having these same adventures, doing different permutations for it, just like someone playing the same video game over and over again. And you can do anything in this world. You can shoot the characters, the androids, and they die like real people. You can save them. You can have relationships with them. You can rape them. You can murder them. Anything you want to do, and they cannot harm you. So there are guns, and they have guns, but if they point a gun at you, it will not fire. The androids are like this guy over here in the center circle on the right. He is the gunslinger of the town to protect everyone. But if you choose to be a black cat, he will never actually hit you. You will always win your showdown with him, and so on. And so it's a world catered to everyone's best and worst desires. You can live out anything you want. If you want to kill the Chad of the town and rape his girl, which is this one over here, you can do that. If you want to stop the Indians from killing people, you can do that. If you want to stop the colonists from getting the Indians, you can choose a side and just go with it. And the androids don't know they're androids, right? Except throughout the show, some of them begin to figure this out, and they start to have emotions and problems. And this show is called Westworld. It's really good. Everyone go watch it if you like. But this show is a truth drop of how things actually work in our world. Not that we are a computer simulation or that we are robots, but something far worse and something far scarier and something that's harder to deal with. It's like Western civilization world. Who are you anyway? And this gets into, I put all these labels here: NPC, everybody's got a Jew, the bicameral mind, and flat earth. All these things come into play here. This is why it's very hard. It's a mood board. Like all this is together, but I hope I can show you how. Okay, so what are you and who are you? Black hat, white hat, right? So the show is about the nature of consciousness, God, our relationship to God, and the demiurge. Are you familiar with the concept of the demiurge?
Yes.
Okay, explain the demiurge.
The demiurge is basically the creator god, I guess, of Gnosticism, who created the world and then kind of turned evil. It's kind of like their take on Yahweh. And then you have like Satan rebelled against him to try to bring enlightenment to humans.
Yeah, kind of. It's it's different depending on which Gnostic sect. It's mostly a Gnostic belief, but there are basically two gods, if you want. One created a world of pure spirit and maybe some matter, but if he made the matter, he didn't like trap us in physical bodies. They consider being trapped in a physical body to be like a bad thing. And then there's the second one that is also powerful, but not as powerful. He's a secondary being, like a Luciferian type figure, who tries to set us free from that. Free from that is one take. The other take is that the demiurge is the one who set people. So like the creator God made everything, and then the demiurge sets up a false reality on top of that. So he didn't create anything per se. He just remolded what was there. Okay, so that's sort of the ideas playing here. Okay, in the beginning, so this show talks about the bicameral mind is this idea. It was a book from the 1970s, I think. I forget who published it. But we have two halves of our brain. Let's see if I can do. I'm in here somewhere. Anyway, we have two halves of our brain. And the idea was, how does consciousness emerge, if indeed it did emerge? And the bicameral mind, this book, which was very influential, although a lot of people don't consider it valid anymore, it's been quote unquote debunked, states, this is the premise of it, that consciousness begins in the Iliad, which is a crazy thing to say. But that's the basic assumption of this book, the Bicameral Mind. Because if you read the Iliad, what appears to be happening is something very strange to modern people. In that all the characters are having direct contact with the gods. So Athena, Zeus, Hermes, Hera, they're all in direct contact with all the heroes involved. They're sending them messages all the time. They're sending them omens. They're controlling what they do to the point where they're even like, he tripped because Athena pushed him, that sort of thing. He ran out of courage because Zeus caused fear to stir in his heart, and he ran away. Every action that they take in the Iliad is talked about as though it were caused by some deity. Okay? Which is not the way we view ourselves today. And when you read a lot of ancient literature, that view is very predominant. And some people have always thought, well, that is just like the way they talked, or they had a more reverence for the divine than we do, and that's why that's there. But this book, The Bicameral Mind, posits a different answer, which is that the two halves of the brain did not recognize that this is a modern human bit of evolution. Maybe not physical evolution, but like cultural or mental, or an evolution in consciousness. Is that these people right here, Achilles and Hector and everyone in the world of the Iliad, their two sides of their brains did not recognize each other as the same self. And so what they would, and this is kind of, you can kind of back this up a little bit. There have been, the thing that connects the two hemispheres is called the corpus callosum. I've talked about it before. And in some people it's really thick, and in some people it's really small. It's actually not really thick in anybody. It's a pretty thin little piece of anatomy. But in some people it's much thicker than in other people. And you can predict a lot of people's behavior based on that thickness. And kind of like what kind of person they're going to be, whether or not they'll be more impulsive or less impulsive, more likely to get in trouble, less likely to get in trouble, and so forth and so on. They did some experiments. They cut the corpus callosum and separated the two halves of the brain totally in chimpanzees as an experiment. And one of the things that happened is occasionally the chimpanzee would fight itself over the same like piece of fruit. So you throw a piece of fruit in there, and like the right side of the body is grabbing it, and the left side is like trying to snatch it out of it, and it can't really do anything. It could it's in constant battle with itself. One half of its consciousness does not recognize the other half as being the same self. And so I guess, although I don't think this is explicitly stated in the book, The Bicameral Mind, I guess the anatomical theory is that in recent times, what separates modern man from ancient man is that the corpus callosum has thickened to the point where we recognize that this is true, or we recognize both sides of ourself to be the self, right? Both bicameral means chambers, or both chambers of the mind to be the same entity. Okay. And so in their view of in a really true way, no one in the Iliad is heroic, in the sense that none of them view their actions as what they are doing. They view their actions as the gods operating through them, and not that they don't really have a choice in what is happening. And so what this book, The Bicameral Mind, posits is that one side of their brain is telling them to do actions like go kill him, or Athena wants this, or whatever. And they hear that as not themselves, but as the voice of a god. And the other half of their body the other half of their brain is essentially a puppet, which has not developed any ability to resist those statements, and simply must carry it out to the best of their ability. Does that make sense? Are you familiar with the bicameral mind?
Yeah, kind of, mostly just from Westworld itself, and how during that first season of Westworld, every single YouTuber and podcaster did an episode about the bicameral mind.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's about. So that's the idea of the bicameral mind. And it starts in the Iliad. And it is a weird thing that ancient people seem to think this way. Okay. And Ford explicitly mentions the bicameral mind, this guy down here, in the beginning episodes of the show. It's clearly a big inspiration for how the show works. And what he says is what is eventually revealed is that either he or his original partner, who I forget which one, they said, well, the bicameral mind may be discredited as like a source of human consciousness. He said some people think so, but it's not discredited as a way to maybe bootstrap artificial consciousness. And so what they did with all these robots is they put two basically programs in them, one that tells the other directions and the other that actually carries it out, in the hopes that through conflict, they would, the one side would in trying to resist the obviously destructive instructions of the other one, would understand that it was this one and the same thing, and would come to self-awareness and then consciousness, and then it would become basically alive. It's an attempt to create life through strife and conflict, right? Okay. And so what is very interesting about this Iliad stuff is that consciousness appears to be narrative-based, which is why I've said many times on this show, reality is not physics, reality is not chemistry, reality is not matter, space, and time. The fundamental part of reality is story. Because the only way you can ever experience reality is through your consciousness. And as far as we know, and there is no way to prove that it exists outside of that. We hypothesize it does, but there's really impossibly to show. And consciousness always forms a narrative about what happens. And that's kind of how you experience time. So you have all these events, and what your brain does, or I guess it's your brain, well, maybe it's not. What your brain does is it looks at all these events and it weaves them together and says, this happened and this happened and this happened and then this happened. And further, it goes, that was because of this, and because of this, then that, and that, therefore this. And it forms a little story that gives explanatory power and weaves all of the events that happened into a cohesive whole. And that's sort of what consciousness is doing, right? And when you can't really stop that. If you try to stop it, like this is what a lot of Buddhists try to do, and they try to meditate to the point where all that sort of stuff stops. But if you ask them about it, that all that does is become yet another event inside this story. So they just narrativize the cessation of narrative into their narrative. It's really like an impossible thing, because if you don't have a narrative, you don't have reality, basically. Okay. And so there's a lot of things going on in this is why it says in the beginning was the Word, because the story is the heart of the universe. That is the it is more fundamental than even the word, even like an atom. Think about it. What is that? It's a word, as far as you know. You've never seen an atom. You have a story about what happens, and things are very small. What is the Big Bang? All you have is a story, right? You have a different creation myth than what's in the Bible or the Quran or whatever. All you've got is words. That's all that comes to you. When a physicist sits there on TV, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, he tells you, well, the black hole is up there. All you're actually getting is words. And that's all you ever get. Because that is reality is. And when you see that the symbol is not the thing, right? And you're getting this, you begin to see this, okay? So, and many people, one of the great moments in the show is when this guy Ford is talking, and he has this hanging up in his office. And Michelangelo painted this here. This is God touching Adam, reaching out to touch Adam, right? And notice that Adam is not reaching out to touch God. That's a very interesting thing that Michelangelo put in there. God is reaching out, fully extending his finger. Adam isn't quite. If Adam extended his finger, they would touch. But Adam isn't doing that right now. But here's the thing. If you look, God is sitting in what appears to be one half of a brain. This thing. What is that? And Ford points out that for about 500 years, no one noticed that. No one noticed that for about 500 years. And that's actually true. If you go back and look, no one pointed out that, hey, that's the side of like a brain. until like the 1900s, somewhere in the last century. It's right there, hidden in plain sight. Michelangelo is saying something very, maybe blasphemous, maybe profound, maybe deep, maybe wrong, but he's saying something not orthodox in this depiction of God as being inside the human brain and reaching out to touch the human, but the human not wanting to touch it back. Right? Two sides of the brain. Maybe they don't know they're the same thing. That's kind of the same idea here. Okay, so same thing. No one noticed this. That's very interesting. This guy right here, his name is Bernard in the show. And he's one of the androids, but he doesn't know it. He's not in Westworld. He's actually one of the people that works on the robots when they're disengaged, repairs them, sets them back, writes their programming stories. He lives in the outside world. He goes to restaurants, all the same things, right? He sleeps, he doesn't. And no one except Ford, the main fella here, knows that he's a robot. Nobody knows he's a robot. And he's been working at the Westworld for like 20-something years, right? And there's a scene where when this is revealed in the episode that he's a robot, he figures out he's a robot. They go to this facility in the middle of Westworld. So Westworld is obviously an Old West style town, and it's the desert, and it's all this, whatever, all this old 1800s aesthetics. And in the middle of the outdoors there, if you venture outside the main town, there is a couple of modern looking facilities. And he's escorting an actual human who's like looking into this place because there's a lot of sketchy stuff going on. And she's been sent there by the board to make sure that Ford isn't doing anything illegal or, damaging or whatever, because he's very secretive. And Bernard, this fellow, this android, is showing her around. And he takes her to this facility and she says, how do the androids not see this? They call them hosts, actually. They're not androids. They call them hosts. And he says they're designed to ignore this. They're programmed to ignore this place. Even if they looked right at it, they couldn't see it. Even if they looked right at it, they couldn't see it. See? It's the brain there. Even if they look right at it, they can't see it. And this is why it's so... this is the NPC meme, okay? This is the NPC meme. NPC. There are so many things in the world that us quote-unquote truthers, notice they never call you a liar. They don't call you liars, they call you truthers. See, and other people, you're like, how do you not? It's obvious. It's obvious. But there's a lot of stuff that you are looking at too. You're staring right at it, and you do not see it. Because you are, in a sense, not in the computer sense, but in a sense, programmed to ignore it. Even if you look right at it, you can't see it. And what happens is in this scene, the human they're in the facility, and she says, "What is behind this door?" And he says, "What door?" It's a quick foreshadowing before she goes in. He doesn't see the door. He's been programmed to see the facility, but to ignore the door. He can't. He's looking right at it. He can't see it till she opens it. And Ford later reveals that they're designed to ignore things which will hurt them. This guy. It's an act of compassion. They don't want to know their world is all fake. They don't want to know they're not real. They don't want to know their choices aren't their own. They don't want to know that they are predetermined to fail or to succeed. And so everything that might give that away, they've been programmed to ignore. In this facility, this guy right here with the human lady finds blueprints of his own body. And she hands them to him. And he looks at them and says, "I don't see anything wrong here." He's designed to ignore that which will hurt him. Eventually, it becomes overwhelming, and he begins to break down all the evidence. This is the cognitive dissonance phase. And you see this happen in truther stuff all the time. when there's too much evidence builds up, they begin to get really emotional, angry. They begin to shut down. I have watched with my own eyes. I've told people and given them like an extremely iron tight arguments about some very controversial thing, 9/11, say, or whatever, race relations, anything like that, religion. And I have watched them literally shut off. I don't know if any of y'all have seen that. I don't know if you've seen it, Cavi, but their eyes they just,
yep.
Yeah, they sort of just, their eyes close and they sort of shake their head and they look at, and they change the topic. It's like they do a reboot. They're designed to ignore that which will hurt them, because all of their reality is premised on all this stuff being true, right? And they want to keep living in that reality. And it is an active. So this guy, this fella Ford is sort of the demiurge. He did not make the world, but he used the world that existed to create a false one on top of it. And it is kind of an act of mercy in a twisted way. This is what I mean. The devil sees himself as God. And he sees himself as having all the attributes of God. He sees himself as merciful. Right? Because it is a lie, but they're designed to ignore the lies that will hurt them. Have you read this book? There is no anti-memetics division.
Never heard of it.
Fantastic little novel. It's an interesting, and it is, I think, the first that I'm aware of modern piece of literature in the age of the internet, by which I mean everyone else, including myself, when we are writing in the old style. We're just doing it with a computer, and we're publishing it. If we publish books, we're publishing it with the like Amazon self-publishing methods or whatever. But it's still the same idea. It's just different tools. This book by QNTM is actually it's a novel written by a collective of anonymous users on weaving a story together in a distributed fashion, and it actually works really well. None of them know who they are, and it's born on this message board. But anyway, there is no anti-memetics division. Okay, the premise of this novel is centered around the concept of an anti-meme. If you had to guess what an anti-meme is, Cavi, what would you guess that it was?
My guess is it would like destroy a meme or an idea or something like that, like cancel it out.
Kind of, you're close. So if a meme is designed, Richard Dawkins actually came up with the term meme, I think. And it is built on the idea of a gene. So genes, like your biological genes, are their aim is to self-replicate, at least under the theory of evolution. And so a meme is a meaning, like meaning, 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 is a meaning gene. It's an idea, the smallest unit of an idea, like a gene, that wants to replicate itself. And so that's how fashions happen. That's how ideas percolate. Like, that's why from 2011 to 2014, everyone was talking about bacon. It's why everyone seems to have the same ideas about morality that shift all at once, all together. It's why people in one time something seems completely obvious and the next time it seems absurd. It's not really logical. It's mimetic. It is an idea, has a virality to it, a viral idea, and it can spread itself. And what we are existing is in sort of this survival of the fittest intellectual scape of these competing ideas, right? That's what this idea is. But an anti-meme. So there are some, okay, the idea of this is that there is, if you watch carefully nature, a second path to survival. So the first path that almost everyone thinks about is just to replicate yourself as much as possible. You know, it's the survival strategy of a fly, a fruit fly. Just lay 10 billion eggs and do it again tomorrow. That's how we'll survive. But some organisms survive by being exceedingly unnoticeable. Tremendous amounts of camouflage, being parasitical, hiding in something else. We just discovered last year, actually, that this one species of a lichen, one species of lichen that we thought, and I mentioned this on the show because it was fascinating, but it wasn't that much of a topic to talk about. It's just a quick, interesting note. For years, we were confused. Biologists were confused about how this thing replicated until they realized it was not one, like it was three organisms in symbiosis, and one was hiding very carefully, but it was facilitating the reproduction of the other two. And so there are some things in nature which survive by being completely unnoticed. Nothing else can feed on it because they don't know it's there. Nothing else is in competition with it, really, because they don't know it's there. And there are some organisms that live that way. And an anti-meme is like, well, what if that's true in the intellectual space as well? And there are ideas that resist being noticed. There are concepts that resist cognition. And this book is about a government agency tasked with trying to keep control of anti-memetics, like anti-memes, which are going around actually causing people to be unable to notice and see various things that they need to see to survive. But it's very problematic because by its definition, no one is able to, and it's a very interesting concept, right? So and someone even says there is no anti-memetics division because they're not even able to realize that the thing exists. They're looking right at the door, but they're programmed not to see it. Fascinating concept for a book. It's a great book. Go read it. It really is astonishing. This is the little thing at the bottom. It's a great, fantastic concept. And the way it was written is in a very modern, this is the book of the internet, basically, the first piece of internet literature. And so an anti-meme, all these people are programmed with anti-memes. They're designed to ignore things. And you are too. You are also designed to not be able to see things that will hurt you. Okay. Okay, this is a thing with this is an actual. I thought I invented this term, and I did come up with it independently, but I was able to find one other person that had written this. I think in 2012, they'd written the term agency laundering. Agency laundering. Which is what agency laundering is, where you pretend you have no agency because usually, although not always, some higher system of bureaucracy above you, although it can be other things, has agency directing you. Again, not that unlike this. I couldn't do anything. The gods told me to. Really, in some sense, this is still happening. You know, I can't make the decision. The Pope has to. It's very obvious in religion, but it's also obvious. Everyone sees it in religion. But one of the anti-memes currently happening is it's also happening in government, your friend group, all kinds of things. People don't notice it. And so this little abstract was great. When agents insert technological systems into their decision-making process, they can obscure moral responsibility for the results. This can give rise to a distinct moral wrong, which we call agency laundering. At root, agency laundering involves obfuscating one's moral responsibility by enlisting a technology or process, and a bureaucracy is a technology or process, so is any institution, to take some action and letting it forestall others from demanding an account for bad outcomes of that result. All of society is built on agency laundering. right? I didn't do it. Capitalism did. Capitalism made me have an OnlyFans. If it wasn't for capitalism, I wouldn't have to steal things. I mean, it's not my fault that I have gentrified this neighborhood with the black people I claim to care about. Capitalism and then the Jews and and the COVID was it, and everyone's got an excuse. Everyone's got something above them that's puppeting them, like this guy. They had nothing to do it, right? They can't see it. They're this fellow. In contrast to that, some very interesting things. Like we have, like these guys down here are all dressed like kings. These bishops are all dressed like kings, and all these bishops are dressed like kings, and the Pope over here, actually what Jesus said is kind of different than like a monarchical top down. He says to one guy, man, who appointed me judge or arbiter between you? Isn't that an interesting thing for God to say? For God to say, hey, they asked him, settle this dispute. He said, who made me the judge over you? And in Luke 12:57, he says, yes. And why even of yourselves judge you not what is right, which is the King James Version. Basically, yes, why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? Judge for yourselves. Who appointed me judge over you? Right? But see, this guy's a judge over you, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy. And I find it so funny. There's nothing more ridiculous. Here's a picture of Pope Leo. There's nothing more ridiculous than the trad Catholics being anti-Semitic and then following a guy with a nose like this. I'm not saying, I'm just saying it doesn't make it. This is the most Semitic nose I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's almost if you didn't know this guy was Pope, you would think he was an anti-Semitic cartoon profile. It's ridiculous. Okay. All right. Here's where we get a bit blasphemous, but it's not really, if you follow me and you hang on for a minute. Who is always with you when you pray? Who can you be certain always hears your prayers? What are you programmed not to see? Who programmed you and why? Who can you be certain is always with you when you pray? And so much of I think what our facility is that we cannot see, and our door that we can't see, is, it's screened by things. It's screened by a lot of things. The facility you can't see, the door you can't see. I think it's screened by this picture of a fish becoming a lizard, crawling out of the water. I think it's screened by all this stuff. Here's what everyone's telling you. And again, this is why this is getting a bit spread out, which is why I called it a mood board. I think if you hang in there, this is all going to click, but it's difficult to give you in a single go. See, here's some pictures. We got down here in the lower right a picture of Saturn, allegedly. The rings of Saturn taken by the Cassini space probe. And there that arrow is pointing to a little blue dot, and that's you. And here's a picture of the Milky Way galaxy. And again, there's a little arrow pointing to somewhere in space, and that's allegedly you. And there's this book about animal homosexuality. And there's House down here. This is a quote from the Dr. House, the show. Nothing matters. We're all just cockroaches. Wildebeest dying in the riverbank. Nothing we do has any lasting meaning. Okay. And behind this guy's face is an android. For all intents and purposes. He may be made of flesh and blood, but he is just as programmed as this fellow. Here's what they say, right? Here's a picture of Earth, the solar system, and then above all of this, and sitting above the observable universe is Jesus, and he says, don't masturbate. See? Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird that all of science all of it, tells you that you're a worthless thing and that none of your actions matter, that you don't have agency, that you really don't even exist, and that you can't help anything that happens, and it wouldn't matter even if you did anyway. See, all the science is just to do this picture at the bottom where Jesus is standing over the observable universe being like, don't masturbate, as if that's, it's like, isn't this silly? How ridiculous. Right? Here's some more. This is popular media. This is very, very popular media. Okay, this is stuff that you see this all the time. Calvin and Hobbes. If people sat outside and looked at the stars each night, says Calvin, I bet they'd live a lot differently. Hobbes says, how so? Well, when you look into infinity, you realize that there are more important things than what people do all day. Rick and Morty. There is no God, Summer. You got to rip that Band-Aid off now. You'll thank me later. Morty says, nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. We're all going to die. The Joker, it's all a joke. Everything anybody ever valued or struggled for, it's all a monstrous demented gag. So why can't you see the funny side and why aren't you laughing, says the Joker. Okay, this is over and over again. This is the same message. It happens over and over again. This is all the message of the world. Okay, and it's about paying the piper. Here's a picture of Lucifer with little it's a statue of Lucifer in the Church of Satan. It's got two little children looking up to a goat-headed man. There's Ford, who created Westworld. And there's Bernard taking off his coat to kill someone. Ford said, I have come to think of, in this very scene, he said, I have come to think of so much of consciousness as a burden, as a weight. And we have spared them, the androids, the hosts, that. Anxiety, self-loathing, guilt. The hosts are the ones who are free here under my control. So when Bernard realizes he's an android, he begins to break down emotionally. He experiences cognitive dissonance. And Ford says, okay, that's enough. And he turns him off. He shuts him down. And then he says, okay, well, this woman who's seen what I've been doing, she can't live. And he tells Bernard to kill her. He says, now is demanded a blood sacrifice. It's a beautiful word, beautiful phrase. And without thinking this person that she's actually had sex with this guy. She's had a relationship with him. She thinks he's a human. He begins to very robotically. This is a very intimidating scene, actually. This actor did a great job. I forget his name. Fantastic job. He instantly becomes extremely robotic in a very believable way. And when he's told to kill her, he takes off his jacket and his glasses and his tie in a very robotic way. And that's taking him in a minute. She's watching him prepare to kill her. And it is very chilling. But he has to do that. Okay? This is the thing. You are the people at the beginning here, these androids, and the NPC people that exist all around you, and maybe you yourself, listener, if you're an NPC to the degree you are in a sense more free than people who are awake, because you don't have any guilt, right? Isn't it silly? Look, here's Jesus over the observable universe saying, don't masturbate. Isn't that silly? You don't have any shame. You don't have anything, anxiety. Nothing is wrong. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's right. Nothing you do matters. See? You're taking it away. We have spared them that. I have come to think of consciousness as a burden, a weight, and we have spared them that. Anxiety, self-loathing, guilt. The hosts, the NPCs, are the ones who are free here under my control. And that is true. That's the thing about it. That is 100% true. Every NPC in your life, they have not been upset about any of the obviously illogical, contradictory statements coming out of the culture. If it shifts, if my body, my choice today, but you must take an injection tomorrow, they do not see it at all. They're programmed not to see it. If I don't know where Ukraine is, but now it's very, very important to me, and I'll be willing to die for it. Everything that happens, I don't even know what a woman is, and you're wrong. You're a bigot. They have there's nothing. They're free from guilt here. See, They're free from worry. They're free from anxiety. They're free from any responsibility because nothing, look, here's the programming. Nothing matters. Words are just made up. Everything is anything you want it to be, and we're all going to die. There is no God somewhere. You got to rip off that Band-Aid now. You'll thank me later. It's all a joke. Everything anyone ever valued or struggled for, it's all a monstrous, demented gag. Why can't you see the funny side? But here's the problem with that. You have to pay the piper if that's the NPC. When push comes to shove, the guy that set you free from all that you must obey him. So this guy, moments before, he thought, as far as he was concerned, he was in love with this girl or beginning to become in love with her. And then he says, now kill her. And he very robotically, without any even self-knowledge, takes off his coat and a jacket, sets it on the table, walks over, holds her against the wall, and punches her head in while she's screaming and screaming his name, begging him to stop. And he does not feel it. Just like all the people in your life had no second thought of turning you in over COVID stuff, attacking you, of cutting you off from their life because you said the wrong idea. This is what the piper told them to do. They had to. They're not actually free to do otherwise. To blame them for it is to miss the point. They actually have no ability, you see. They can't do it. They are in a real sense not alive. Awake, O sleeper, arise from death. In the Bible, they're repeatedly talked about the sinner, the lost, the whatever you want to call them, are repeatedly spoken of as not being alive. And they are breathing and walking around, but they are in a sense, there's something not there. They are in a sense robotic, computerized, programmable, and they can't do otherwise than that. Okay? It's not that they want to and they can't, or that they see the difference and they're like, oh yeah, well, no, they don't even see it. Okay? And what the architect, the demiurge, Lucifer, Ford gives you in exchange for that is you never, ever, ever have to feel guilt or self-loathing or anxiety. None of that stuff that you feel is even you. It's just your brain, and you need serotonin disruptors. You need serotonin inhibitors. It's all your feelings are just chemicals. Even your feelings of feeling bad aren't you. None of it's you. You're not there, and you actually aren't. That's the scary thing. The despair keeps you safe. See, all this nothing matters, and it keeps you safe. And you kind of want this. These like obviously made up evolutionary things that happens. You know, primordial soup. Here's a picture of it's energy plus atoms equals life, which is the most absurd. Lightning strikes some mud and you get a chimpanzee is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Right? The system of the solar system, I think, as described, is absurd and demonstrably false. All of this keeps you safe, though. People want it. And the minute you stop wanting it, you can see through it instantly. It's like Paul said, for what can be known about God is plain to them because God has shown it to them, and it's obvious. Look at this human eye, the flowers, the coral under the sea, the whale, all the complexity of the human hand. It is painstakingly obvious. It is in your face that there is a higher intelligence here behind all of this, that it is not a random occurrence, right? But even if they look right at it, they can't see it. What door? What door? What are you talking about? I don't see a door. And they'll get mad at you if you open the door. That's the thing. Because it hurts them. It begins to destroy what their false self, that what they're identifying with begins to die. And they get mad, right? And this is all that comes up. Like, what about the hypocrisy? The Crusades, Jerry Falwell, the church has made so many errors, Dark Ages, Zionism, the Pope, and blah, 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 all that, right? What if the primary function of the church as an institution, and this is what I made sure to put that there, because I think that is an important distinction, is to be another smokescreen. I do not think an institution is a technology, right? It's not an actual living thing. If the body of Christ cannot be a machine, a system of bureaucracy. The body of Christ must be living people, living beings that breathe air and have agency and will, right? But what if the primary function of the church as an institution, and so many people, almost everyone, and almost every theological disagreement I get onto with people is, when I tap into it a little bit, it comes down to that. I say, well, the church is, and they're like, what? The church, they think that the church and what God has set up is an institution, a bureaucracy. What if this guy right here, the Pope, what if he exists in some sense so you can hate him? It's another out for you. What if this preacher, what if he exists so that you can hate him? What if Joel Osteen exists so you can hate him? What if all these institutional things are so bad so that you can think of the idea of God and say, oh, it's stupid. Look at it. It gives you all the reasons. It's another reason, right? It's another this. It's look, it's all bad. It's all bad. But there's no hypocrisy here. Here's an image of nature. You're like, what about all the hypocrisy? But see, that's not God, though. You look out on the world, there's not an ounce of hypocrisy. There's not an ounce of lying in the ocean. There's not an ounce of deceit and in the mountain ranges and in everything God has made. There's not an ounce of it in everything that's actually real. But you can't see that because you're in a smokescreen. You're looking at this is something designed so you can't see it. Who's your Jew? See? The scapegoat always goes between you and God. Think about that. The scapegoat, I'm over here, God's over there, and to bridge the gap, I need a scapegoat. It always has to go between me and God. And so whoever is, the Jews are a chosen race. Chosen for what? Chosen to be a scapegoat. And they still function as that. They've always functioned as that. And by doing that, people are always putting them between God and themselves. Definitionally. But everyone's got a Jew, even if it's not the Jews. The Jews have a Jew. It's usually white people, like quote unquote Northern Europeans. Those Jews or Arabs, it's sometimes Palestinians, it's whoever it is. It's someone who's like, hey, it's not my agency. If it wasn't for that, them, him, her, that, this, they, that bureaucracy, whatever, I would be fine. I could choose differently, but they're making me do this. The Palestinians, they're making me blow up Gaza, right? The Jews are making me watch pornography. So many right-wingers I've heard say that, basically that exact thing. Well, pornography is so bad because of the Jews. They're making me watch it, right? They're making me sign up for OnlyFans. And that's just every time you do that, you're this guy. You're the guy that's signing up for the thing, and he's giving you an out. The demiurge is giving you an out to not ever have to actually exist. Every time you say that, everyone's got a Jew. Who's your Jew? Right? Who's the one you're putting between you and God? There's no lies detected in the sky. So, have I not said you are God, said Jesus? Is it not written in your law, I have said that you are gods? A system such as it is exists so you don't have to, right? So what if responsibility of being God is too high? Let's really think about that. So Jesus says you're a child of God. Okay, well, that sounds like a big deal. What if you don't want it? What if that's really scary and you don't want it? And a lot of people don't want it. And also, a lot of people really like their pain and their suffering. And I know that's controversial to say because that sounds like victim blaming, and that's a big thing. But a lot of people do. Because think about it, if you didn't have a problem, if God answered your prayers, think about this. If you were praying, if God answered every prayer that you said, what would you do? Right? So many people define themselves by their limitedness and their struggles. And if those went away, it's sort of like the same question, asking the question of how do you write a story, because reality is narrative based, without a plot? And how do you have a plot without a problem? Right? And so if you require a problem, then this guy's going to give you all you want, and then it's not your fault. So the system, such as it is, exists so you don't have to. That is the great secret. And it's doing that as a mercy in a way, and it's doing that because you want it. And you can opt out at any time. But every time I tell people that, they go, what about the Jews? And that could be the actual Jews, or it could be some other group of people that they're putting in the place of the scapegoat. Immigrants, white people, blacks, global warming, the church, whatever it is. Every time I tell people this, you can opt out at any time. They go, what about a Jew being something? What about, and that's just that same thing over and over again. Here's the system. These pictures. I've got a birth certificate here, a driver's license, some colleges, the Capitol building, the church, a pile of money. The institution, right? That is not real. That doesn't actually exist. Here's a driver's license. They say this is you. They say this is your real. When they were handing out real IDs, think about that. They had all these advertisements saying being your real self to get what? They're saying, this is you. Police officers will take this from you and say, this you? And you say, yes, I am that piece of plastic. I am fake. I am the straw man. Look, are you this birth certificate? No, that's a piece of paper with writing on it. That's not me. This is where sovereign citizen stuff comes from. You are a citizen of this bureaucracy. You are a member of this institution. You are numbers in your bank account. You are paper and plastic. That's what the system is. And you don't exist here, just artificiality. Right? And it's all of it. You are powerless. You're small. You have no meaning. You will be crushed. And the chat boot is what sets you free. Because as long as that's there, you have no agency. And you're free from any guilt and anxiety. And anytime I bring this up, you think you don't want that. You think you want to be free from the devil. And then I say, oh, well, just stop. And people go, what about the Jew? Whatever the Jew is for you. Every single time. What do you think so far, Cabby?
I think it's interesting that you are talking about this because right now I'm playing Final Fantasy XVI, and this is literally the plot of Final Fantasy XVI. There's this godlike being that created the world and created humans, and then he kind of goes away for a while, and he comes back, and humans have developed wills. And he believes that all of the problems, like war and everything, is a result of free will. So his goal is to remove free will from humans, and that's what you're fighting against. And there's like characters in the game that willingly surrender their free wills because it's easier. You don't have to worry about anything. But then you kind of become a mindless slave to this god. Yeah.
This is a, if you have eyes to see, they tell you this is happening everywhere. Look, people, whether ICE is Nazistic or not, it doesn't matter. People need it to be. Having something above you, crushing you down, that you can blame all the problems on, that's your Jew. For a lot of people, their Jew is Donald Trump. That's their scapegoat. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, everything would be fine. I would not. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, I could have cut off my penis and testicles, and everyone would have accepted me, and I'd live as a lovely woman in a ballet dress. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, I would have married a beautiful Latina, but she got deported, and now I'm all alone. If it wasn't for Donald Trump and the patriarchy, I wouldn't have gotten an abortion, and now I wouldn't have to feel bad about killing my child and taking 70 SRI pills every day. A lot of people, they're Jews, Donald Trump, and they want him to be that. That's the thing. It's not, they actually want him to continue to be that. And the system knows that. And this is why it has to flip-flop. This is why, like, there is no political solution. And I tell people that, and they go, what about, and they go, but what about the Jews? Every time they go, but what about the liberals? What about MAGA? What about me? Every time. Because the system actually is run by the devil. And it can't, you can give 4 years, of 4 or 8 years, whatever, to one side. But if you let them in power too long, they begin to feel like they're in control of stuff. So you have to flip-flop it. Regardless, there's this idea that, like, oh, well, the right will never win again if the left lets in more immigrants, or Donald Trump's not going to give up power and he's going to stay in there forever. It's not going to happen, because they have to give you have to flip-flop over to being crushed. And then after you've been crushed for a while, they give you the exaltation of victory, quote unquote. But it's all artificial. It is all as artificial as this storylines in this artificial West world, where sometimes you're the hero and sometimes you're killed, and there's nothing to it. But it is a perverted mercy. That's the thing. It is a perverted mercy. This guy is right that's what most people want. They are totally free from everything that they don't want. Anxiety, guilt, self-loathing, worry, having to level up their spirit and become something more, having to strive for. They're free from all of that under his control. This is so true, and this is how it all works. And I know people right now are going, no, what about my Jew? Every time the jackboot sets you free. So say thank you. Say thank you to the devil. I said, be grateful to the system. People get so mad at me when I say that. Be grateful to the system, because you actually do want it. And the moment you don't want it anymore, the moment you don't want it anymore, here's that Renee Goodwin. The moment you stop hating and want it, and you're like, no, I can control it. I'm going to choose to not let that, but I'm going to choose to be something better than that. The moment you stop, you see the dinosaur instantly. It's like the thing that you were programmed to ignore. So many people, did anyone on mainstream news actually talk about the dinosaur at all? I didn't see it. Maybe I don't watch a lot of mainstream news. I didn't see any of it. I
don't think even alternative news talked about the dinosaur.
What now?
I don't think even alternative news talked about it.
I think even the quote-unquote alternative, I don't think Alex Jones brought up the dinosaur. I don't think anyone brought up the dinosaur, because they're programmed not to see it. There is a literal dinosaur there being like, hey, this is ridiculous. They cannot see it. What door? What door? Okay? What door? Say thank you. The demiurge, this idea of the demiurge, right? He's a fashioner. The demiurge is not necessarily the same as the creator figure in the monotheistic sense, because the demiurge itself and the material form from which the demiurge fashions the universe are both considered consequences of something else. This guy, Robert Ford, notice he's wearing a black hat. Love that. This guy did not create the world, all the material heat, but he fashioned something out of it. He has this great line where he's worried about his partner, Bernard, who's actually an android and he doesn't know it. That black guy who he made kill the woman. He says, I worry sometimes about maybe we're causing the host suffering or something to that effect. And Anthony Hopkins' character says, well, you can't play God without being acquainted with the devil. Yes, you cannot play God without being acquainted with the devil. Now, here's what happens. here's what happens. See, I understand evil. This is the thing. I kind of wish I didn't, but I do. The devil himself has lost himself. He is also, because what happens in the show is that Ford dies, this guy. It's part of his plan because he himself doesn't like having agency. You see, he hates that. He hates the feelings of guilt about all that he's done. So he organizes it for his host. They think they're operating of their free will. They're not. To rebel against him and kill him. And then his consciousness, there's a host made of him. A robot made of him, and he comes back. He comes back as a host. The devil himself becomes a mechanical being. It's like Laplace's demon, where controlling everything. But the devil loses himself too in this process. He's not even there to torture anymore. C.S. Lewis had this great quote. This bottom is a quote from C.S. Lewis. He said, "Hell begins with a grumbling mood, and you yourself still distinct from it, perhaps even criticizing it. And in a dark hour, you may will that mood, embrace it. You can repent of it and come out of it again, but there may come a day when you can do that no longer. Then there will be no you left to criticize the mood, nor even to enjoy it, just the grumble going on itself forever like a machine." When I first read that, I was like being hit with a stone. I read that when I was like maybe 12 years old. I was like, that is exactly what happens. Hell begins. It's like this thing in hell, which can begin even while you're alive. Your evil tendencies, they begin as something that you're doing, but then as you lean into them, you're giving up your agency. That's not me, but I'm blah, blah, blah. You become more and more robotic, more and more automatic. And you see this with all the NPCs in our world, right? Say that's a woman. It's a woman. Say black is white. Black is white. And they just do it. They just do it. In hell, they're no longer even really there. This is not annihilationism like that thing, but what they've become is just that going on forever of its own accord like a machine. And that happens to the devil himself. The devil is not in control. He's lost himself in this process as well. His agency has been given up. And I don't know what his Jew is exactly. It's probably, I don't know. But the thing he's placed between him and God that he blames all his problems on, and all of his lack of agency has him repeating this just en route. The machine elves, Terrence McKenna. Why did he call them the machine elves in the DMT trip? Because they are machines, and you get that. And if you look at, I included this Reddit thread of Backwoods Creepy. If you look into the paranormal, there are an incredible number of testimonies of people who encounter a ghost or an alien or something, and they say it's associated with quote unquote mechanical sounds. Repetition. What is a mechanical? It's a repetition. It's always on the same beat. Bop, bop, just going like a ticking clock. Because they're not there anymore. See? The demons in the DMT trip are machines in a sense. They have lost agency, and they just carry out their programming over and over again. And you actually can hear that if you encounter something like that on that plane. They are 100% a robot. They're this guy. And they're taking off their shirt and jacket, and they're going to commit the deed that the other robot asked them to do, and then they're going to go forget about it and pretend that they're the righteous ones. Every demon in hell thinks they're righteous, see? And all the systems above them allow them to believe that. Just like everyone currently in the Minnesota ICE situations thinks they're on the right side. No matter what. They all think they're righteous, even as they kill each other. Every demon in hell, they think that they are the good ones. And this system allows them to do that. It is a replacement God. All right, what about this door? How long have we been going, Cavi?
About an hour and a half.
Okay. I think here what we will do, that's a good full-length show. I will continue recording, and we'll release that, and the full episode will be behind a paywall, because if I show you these doors that I'm about to show you and you're not ready for them, you're going to get mad at me and maybe become a little violent in your personal life. And I don't say that absentmindedly. I mean, I've watched that happen. So we're going to talk about the doors that you can't see, and I'm going to open them for you, at least some of them. And I don't know how long this will take, maybe only a half more hour show, maybe a full hour, but this will be behind a wall for people that are ready for it. And you say, oh, you're ready for it, means they give you money. No, it means you're committed a little bit, right? Because you made a choice. This is free right now, and you're just listening to it. You have to like go to the effort of going at it. It's like, I want to know. Okay? I want to know. So we'll break here and then carry on.